We're so glad you joined us for this episode of Planted. Today we were in Colleen's garden in the south end of the county, but we'll also be in my garden in the north end for some episodes, and we'll cover all areas in between. We're professionals in the field of horticulture, and we want to bring you the right kind of information.
We live in hardiness zones 8 to 9, but we're hoping that what we talk about today, our research-based, science-based information, will be appropriate to you regardless of where you live in the country and regardless of the type of gardening that you do.
We'll also introduce you to other gardeners and people that grow your food. We'll visit some of the local nurseries, and we'll visit private and public gardens, and we'll also go to some of the farms and farmers markets.
We have a wonderful community around us that we have been inspired by and learned from, and so we're really looking forward to introducing you to those people and those places that are enjoyable and inspiring.
We'll also be doing fun projects.
Like what to do with that bird bath in your backyard that doesn't hold water anymore?
Or goat yoga.
Right. Well, maybe basic irrigation or floral ranging, how to improve your soil.
Yeah, please join us for future episodes because
the more you grow,
the more you'll know. In the spring, there are a lot of plants that are easy to start from seed. Let's talk about how to read a seed packet. A good seed packet has all the information you need to know, hopefully, and that information is found on the back. It'll tell you when to plant, how warm the soil is going to need to be, which is usually like around 60 degrees. It'll tell how many days before you'll see the little seedlings coming up. It'll tell you how far apart to make the rows if you're planting your seeds in rows. And it will tell you how deep to plant the seeds. Some seeds are teeny tiny. Other seeds are round and easy to see. And it will tell you how many days to the time that you're going to be eating those vegetables, which is called the days to maturity. So plants are just like us. They need temperature, they need water and food. So you will have put some fertilizer into your garden bed before you plant the seeds, and then it always helps if you've watered in the soil ahead of time before you start planting the seeds. And then after you plant the seeds on that same time, you'll water them in. And sometimes you have to water them a couple times a day, especially in the summertime when you're planting seeds for fall. Seeds come in all different sizes and flavors, and you'll be choosing the ones you like to eat the most. I personally like lettuces, chards, kale, and of course carrots. These are carrot seeds. They are teeny tiny, and you just barely cover them up with the soil and then pat it down. These are Swiss chard seeds. They are much bigger, and they're actually, I think, more fun to plant because you just poke them into the soil. So also on the back is the germination time, and that it just tells you how long it takes for the seed to become a green plant popping up out of the soil. And with carrots, it's just these two little blades that almost look like grass, so don't weed it. And with lettuce and the leafy plants, it's more like two little round petals. The first time you ever plant something and you're following the directions on the back, you'll be so worried about will it come up or won't it? And the temperature of the soil and the temperature around you will determine how that plant grows. And you'll find that information on the back of a seed packet. To test your soil temperature, you can use a basic thermometer. Some people use their husband or wife's fly fishing thermometer that tests the temperature of the water. And so soil for seeds to germinate, it's usually good if it's 60 to 80 degrees for them to germinate. Some of the crops that are planted in March and April like cooler temperatures, so it'll tell you that on the back of the seed packet. It's good to choose a location that has a lot of sun. So I actually, personally in my own garden, I tracked the sun pattern for a whole year from January through December, and I paid particular attention to the summer months, June, July, and August. Also, you'll see about thinning and also how close to plant things together. And sometimes the plants will grow too close together. So you'll have like 3 little lettuces all sprouted together in a clump. And you can actually pick out the extras, and that'll give you more spacing for the plant to grow. And those make tasty things on salad. You wash them. Some seeds are teeny tiny, and some seeds are fairly large, and that will determine how deep you plant them and how far apart. And some people like to plant in rows and they separate their seeds. Other people just scatter and then they thin, like I told you about. And don't worry if you make a mistake, it's okay. It's a plant and you can compost it. The last thing you want to find on your seed packet is when can you eat these delicious vegetables? And it will tell you. And it's usually about 60 days. And that says, the term is days to maturity. So that means, you could probably harvest some of them earlier if you just can't stand it, especially with lettuce and all the green leafy things. But it basically in 60 days you'll be able to eat them. And that's important here because our last average frost date is April 15th, and our first frost date in the fall is around October 15th. And we have 38 microclimates in Kitsap County. So it, in one garden, the frost date could be different from another one. But you can get several plantings. So 60 days is good, but we really have anywhere from 90 to 120 days of growing. I hope that you will grab some seeds and start planting. Don't throw away your seed packet. Everything you need to know is on the back. You also might have extra seeds that you can save till next year. Don't be afraid. Plants are just like us. They need water and care and food, and you can provide all that with following the instructions on the back of the packet. And I hope that you'll go out and grow some vegetables.
Wondering whether to start your vegetables from seed outside or use potted plants instead? We'll give you the pros and cons of both. What is a start? Another name for a start is a transplant, and it's been planted from seed indoors or in a greenhouse, weeks, even months sometimes, before it could be planted outside from seed. Using starts lets you get a head start on the gardening season. When we talk about growing from seed, we mean planting seed directly in your garden location. What are the advantages of starts? If you grow from starts, you'll be transplanting these plants into the garden and eating them weeks, sometimes months sooner than if you had grown them from seed outside. Brussels sprouts, for instance, need 4 to 6 weeks from growing from seed indoors in pots to transplanting out into the garden. What edibles are best to grow from start? Well, perennial plants and herbs that come back from the same plant year after year are wonderful to grow from starts. For instance, rhubarb, asparagus, berries, or maybe herbs like this thyme or sage. Nurseries sell potted plants anytime from late winter through the summer, and sometimes you can get herbs all year round, so you don't have to wait to enjoy them. If your vegetable provides multiple harvests from just one plant, starts can be very economical because you might only need to plant 1 or 2 plants to harvest from it all summer for instance like the squash, or cucumbers, or tomatoes. Some vegetables are harder to grow from seed and need exacting requirements in order to germinate, so sometimes those plants are best left to the pros. When the amount of time between seeding and eating is long and your summers are short, starts may be the answer for reliable harvests. Now that it's mid-April, frosts are unlikely here, but it's still too early for this tomato and other heat-loving crops to go into the garden. But when the weather's warm enough, I'll have a good chance of getting fruits on this plant because I'll be planting a nice sized start. I planted kohlrabi from 6-packs of starts in the garden in early March. Had I planted it from seed directly in the garden, I would have had to wait until April for the soil temperatures to be right. This way, I'll be eating this delicious cabbage relative just that much sooner. If you only grow 1 or 2 tomatoes and perhaps a zucchini in the summer and shop for the rest of your produce, starts can be economical. Starts are my solution when I haven't prepared my beds early enough or I miss the window for direct seeding. We're out here in the vegetable garden. Many of my things have been grown from starts, many things grown from seed. So what edibles are best grown from seed? Plants that go from seeding to eating in a short time, where each time you harvest, you're removing the whole plant. The plant tends to flower and produce seed rapidly, called bolting, or are planted repeatedly for continued harvest, are all good candidates for growing from seed. Not all vegetables transplant well. For instance, carrots, radishes, turnips. Crops grown for the edible root are best direct seeded in place. Some of the easiest and most economical vegetables to grow from seed are beans, corn, and peas. These are snap peas that I planted from seed back in March. They're a cool season crop, and I'll have snap peas probably by June, maybe late May if I'm lucky. An advantage of growing from seed is the amazing selection. Unusual varieties aren't always available for sale as starts. If you grow your own from seed indoors and then transplant into the garden, you'll get the best of both worlds. But growing from seed is a hobby into itself. Think outside the seed packet, because things like seed potatoes aren't what you think. Not all vegetables are planted just from seed or from potted plants. These onion starts, for instance, are a great way to grow onions in a different way. Or these shallot starts are planted individually and eventually will form a bulb. When you're buying seed potatoes or garlic cloves for planting, make sure you buy seed stock quality. These are grown without growth suppressing chemicals, cured and stored, disease-free, expressly for planting in the garden. One of the best ways to decide which vegetables to grow from transplants or from seed is to look at your seed catalogs and read your seed packet. There's a lot of good information here that will help you be successful. And when you're shopping for seeds or plants at your independent nursery or the farmer's market, ask somebody who grows their own food to give you advice on selection and tips for success. We hope that you'll try growing both from seed and from transplants, because that's how you'll know what works best for the plants that you like to grow and like to eat. Hey Peg, have you ever had a problem with carrot rust fly?
No,
What about flea beetles on your radishes?
absolutely not.
Why's that?
Because of polypropylene floating row covers. Let's show them how to do this.
Row cover is spun polypropylene cloth that's used for vegetable gardening year-round. I drape it over my raised beds to protect them from pests, and it has other benefits too.
Too much anything is bad for your plants. Row covers let in just the right amount of sun, water, and air for your plants to thrive.
Covering planting beds provides extra humidity and a little bit of frost protection underneath. It creates a nice microclimate for plants. And different types of cloth come in different weights, so they offer different light transmission as well as offer different levels of frost protection.
Using these row covers prevents pests from getting into your garden bed to eat or destroy your vegetables. So it's a preventative blocker.
What vegetables grow best with row cover? Some vegetables I use row cover with all year round, from the time I plant the seed till the time I harvest. Vegetables like carrots to prevent carrot rust fly, or radishes to keep away flea beetles, and especially for crucifers like kale and cabbage to keep away imported cabbage moth and cabbage root fly.
Row cover keeps them out of the garden so that we don't have to use harmful chemicals or pesticides to deter them.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, especially when we're talking about soil-borne insects that once they become established, they're almost impossible to get rid of. For some crops, I use the row cover just long enough to protect the seed until it germinates and gets strong enough to endure pests or the elements. With beans, corn, and peas, it can be used just long enough to keep birds from eating the seed before they have a chance to sprout. Or with heat-loving plants like cucumbers, to provide just a little bit of warmth until summer kicks in, then I remove the cover so they can get as much sun as possible. But with lettuces, it's the opposite. Cover to protect from intense sun, extending the harvest window.
Row cover can, when well secured, deter birds, rodents, rabbits, and deer. But because it's lightweight, it can be chewed into, wriggled under, and knocked down. So mainly it's used to exclude insect pests.
What kind of row cover is available? Well, it comes in different brand names like Agrobon and Remay, and different thicknesses. The kind that we use lets in about 85% of light and provides 1 to 4 degrees of frost protection. It comes in widths on rolls of anywhere from 6 feet to 50 feet wide.
You can even find it in kits that includes everything you need: the hoops, the clamps, and the Agrobond.
Most people use hoops to create a sturdy frame to drape their row cover over. I have a friend who has a handy bending tool, and so he helped me bend these 10-foot long conduit pipes into hoops. If I want to extend them and make them longer, I use a handy coupler on the end for tomatoes or other taller plants.
If you don't have a bender, you can bend PVC pipe. You anchor it into the bed using rebar.
So let's put up our row cover. Drape the row cover over your frame, allowing enough extra fabric around the sides to pull on the soil. Then anything heavy can be used to secure the fabric to the soil just inside the walls of the bed. Use bricks, rocks, a length of lumber, or sandbags.
To secure the fabric to the loops, PVC snap clamps work well. You can make your own cut from short sections of PVC, or use binder clips. A square of nylon or heavy plastic between the clip and the row cover prevents the thin fabric from tearing at stress points. Repairs can be made by using duct tape.
You can loosely blanket raised beds or rows for temporary seedling protection. Draped over a tomato cage or cucumber trellis, while our nights are still quite cool, is a great way to use row cover. I keep finding new uses for it and swear by it for successful vegetable gardening.
Farm supply catalogs are great for information and sourcing row cover and accessories. There are also mini websites at WSU, and there is the Maritime Northwest Garden Guide for further information. Sadly, we've come to the end of today's episode, But we hope you'll join us again. We had such fun in your garden today, Colleen.
Thank you, I did too, and I'm looking forward to seeing your garden.
Me too.
In the meantime, here's some more resources for you to check out. For print information, the Maritime Northwest Gardening Guide is an excellent resource with month-to-month information about all things vegetables. A good website that we recommend is the WSU Gardening in Washington State. If you want to see some great gardens in person, I recommend the WSU Kitsap Master Gardeners demonstration gardens throughout Kitsap County. They're excellent places to see vegetable gardening in action and talk to the experts.
Another online resource you might find helpful is gardenwashington.com.
These great resources are posted at the end of this program. But if you've missed any portion of it or want to just see it again, check it out at the BKAT YouTube channel.
That's all the time we have, but in the meantime, till our next episode, go out and do some gardening, get your hands in the dirt, and thanks again for watching. And remember, the more you grow,
the more you'll know.
Mm-hmm.